All right, I believe I'm live now. I'm in a bit of a more relaxed position today. Please don't mind that. I have a different setup altogether, but today we're going to go over Parasha Vayera, and he called. So we're going to go over Genesis 18 through 22. Then we're going to read our half-tur portion in Second Kings, chapter 4, and then we're going to look at the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah portion of Matthew chapter 2. I first wanted to apologize for missing last week. That was definitely not the intention. The intention was to be able to do this, but it's difficult sometimes. So it says, three visitors. So we've got three men here. Yahweh appeared to Avram near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Avram looked up and saw three men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may wash all your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat so you can be refreshed, and then go on your way, now that you have come to your servant." "Very well," they answered, "do as you say." So Abram hurried into the tent to Sarah, sorry. "Quick," he said, "get 3 seahs of the finest flour and knead it and bake some bread." Um, so this is actually reminding me of what Yeshua in the Brit Hadashah said. So let me see if I can actually find the text because this parallels. This is not just something that is in the Old Testament. Matthew 13:3, here we have it. Then Yeshua taught them another parable. Heaven's kingdom can be compared to yeast that a woman takes and blends it into 3 measures of flour, that a woman takes and blends into 3 measures of flour and then waits until all the dough rises. So thought that was an interesting pointer. Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice, tender calf, and gave it to a servant who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared, and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. "Where is your wife Sarah?" they asked him. "There in the tent," he said. Then one of them said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?" Then Yahweh, the manifestation, said to Avram, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I am old?' Is anything too hard for Yah? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, "I did not laugh." But he said, "Yes, you did laugh." So Yahweh saw this take place, and he appeared, um, but not in his full unmediated glory, so that they could both still live. So we then see when the men got up to leave, okay, so Yahweh is one of the three men that we will see later. It says, "And Abraham walked with them to see them on their way. Then Yahweh said, 'Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him.'" So, all nations, all people, right? Not just people who are part of the religion of Judaism or who claim to have the genetic bloodline. "For I have chosen him, so that he will direct his children and his household after him, to keep the way of Yahweh by doing what is right and just." So his instructions. so that Yahweh will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. Then Yahweh said, The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. The men turned away and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before Yahweh. Then Abraham approached him and said, Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? So we see that Yahweh here is a negotiator. So then Abraham spoke up again. Now that I have been so bold as to speak to Yahweh, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for the lack of lack of 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. So again he spoke to him. What if only 40 are found there? For the sake of 40, I will not do it. May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? I will not do it if I find 30 there. Now that I have been so bold as to speak to Yahweh, what if only 20 can be found there? For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. So Avram and Yahweh are negotiating. When Yahweh had finished speaking with Avram, he left, and Avram returned home. Two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. So what we're going to see from Genesis 18 with Sarah is that there's another woman who didn't believe she would have a child in Second Kings chapter 4, and or there's a situation with a woman and child, sorry, in Second Kings chapter 4, and then we also see Mary in Matthew 2 being given a child whose name is Yeshua. So we're just making sure that everything is relating here. So it says, When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. My lords, he said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered, we will spend the night in the square. But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so we can have intercourse with them. That's rough. So that it says Lot went outside to meet with them and shut the door behind him and said, No, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you'd like with them, but don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. So I think there's a reason why the Torah says, do not sell your daughter as a prostitute. Now, it doesn't look like Lot is receiving any monetary contributions for this, but it's pretty clear that um, Lot is. Is there a way for me to share? Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. That's not good. Hold on, let's do this. So it's pretty clear here that Lot um, gave his daughters away and allowed them to be forced. So those people obviously then committed fornication. Get out of our way, they replied. This fellow came here as a foreigner and he now wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them. They kept bringing pleasure on Lot and moved forward to break down, or pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. They were struck by those men. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness so that they could not find the door. So they were gonna force the daughters, but thank goodness this didn't happen. That was their intention, though, for sure. So that's what Lot was gonna do. Do you have anyone else here, sons-in-laws, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry to Yahweh against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. So it really doesn't even we don't know if the fiancés were there or not, so to speak, but it would be very shameful had they not stood up for the 2 daughters either. So he said, "Hurry, get out of this place because the Lord is about to destroy the city." But his sons-in-law thought he was joking, so their hearts were already hardened. Let me go ahead and put this back in. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished." When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for Yahweh was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought him out, one of them said, "Flee for your lives. Don't look back and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." But Lot said to them, "No, my lords, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life, but I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me, and I will die. Look, here is a town near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared." He said to him, "Very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it." That is why the town is called Zoar. By the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then Yahweh rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from Yahweh out of the heavens. So what we have is a manifestation of the Father, likely Yahweh the Son, raining raining this fire from the Father himself, who is enthroned out of the heavens. So we see 2 Yahwehs very clearly. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities, and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar. In this case, she became a pile of salt. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before Yahweh. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, the smoke from like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham and brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. One day the older daughter said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is no man around here to give us children." Their fiancés died, so this is what they're worried about. They're worried about childbearing. Potentially at this point, they're already reaching an age where it's harder to bear children, so they wanna do it while they still can, as is the custom all over the earth, right? Because Yahweh said, "Be fruitful and multiply." So they say, "Let us get our father to drink wine," so let's get him drunk, "and then sleep with him and preserve our family line through our father." So this is an incestuous relationship which is prohibited already in the Bible, but it gets prohibited again. There's a prohibition that is stated in the book of Leviticus. It says, "That night they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and slept with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. And the next day the older daughter said to the younger, 'Last night I slept with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and sleep with him, so we can preserve our family line through our father.' So they got their father to drink wine that night also. And the younger daughter went in and slept with him. Again, he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab, for he is the father of the Moabites today." And this is the line where Ruth comes from. And it says that in later in the Torah that down to the 10th generation you can't enter the house of God, which is the temple. So this is why you see what you see with Ruth the Moabitess finally being to enter. And it says the younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. Now Abraham moved on from there into the region of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed in Gerar, and there Abraham said of his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, "You are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is a married woman." Now Abimelech had not gone near her, and so he said, "Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did he not say to me, 'She is my sister'? And didn't she also say, 'He is my brother'? I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me." So basically, he stopped Abimelech before he actually committed the sin. That is why I did not let you touch her. So that's what he says right here. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. So Abram is his prophet. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all who belong to you will die. Early the next morning, Abimelech summoned all his officials, and when he told them all that had happened, they were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham in and said, "What have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? Uh, you have done things to me that should never be done." And Abimelech asked Abraham, "What was your reason for doing this?" Abraham replied, "I said to myself, 'There is surely no fear in God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife.'" So Abraham looks like Abraham was certainly involved in this ploy and used Sarah as a way to get these people to fear God. Besides, she really is my sister. The daughter. So he makes an admission here, right? Besides, she really is my sister, right? Like his half sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife. So, yeah, so he did something that already was not very good. And when Elohim or God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, "This is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, 'He is my brother.'" So basically, use her beauty as a shield, and that way I won't be harmed either. Then Abimelech brought sheep and cattle and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, "My land is before you. Live wherever you like." To Sarah he said, "I am giving your brother 1,000 shekels of silver. This is to cover the offense against you before all who are with you. You are completely vindicated." Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female slaves so they could have children again. For Yahweh had kept all the women in Abimelech's household from conceiving because of Abraham's wife Sarah. Now Yahweh was gracious to Sarah, as he had said, and Yahweh did for Sarah all that he had promised. And let's see if we can. Um, Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. When his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him, as God commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, hold on, let me make sure I haven't done this. Um, Let me make sure there ain't nothing going on, like I haven't done this before. 1 second here. I don't know why this is going. This feels a bit redundant for whatever reason. Maybe I've just read it so many times. I have no idea. No, maybe not. All right. Uh, and she added, "Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age." The child grew and was weaned, and on the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham was mocking, and she said to Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." The matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son. But God said to him, "Do not be so distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is your offspring." Early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar, and he set them on her shoulders, and then sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down about a bow shot away, for she thought, "I cannot watch the boy die." And as she sat there, she began to sob. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of the Lord called Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. So both Isaac and Ishmael will have the blessing of a great nation." Then Elohim opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. So Nimrod was a hunter, but here we have Ishmael being an archer. So both they had skills. While he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham, "God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me here before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me in the country where you now reside as a foreigner the same kindness I have shown you." Abraham said, "I swear it." Then Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized. But Abimelech said, "I don't know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I heard about it only today." So Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a treaty. Abraham set apart 7 ewe lambs from the flock, and Abimelech asked Abraham, "What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs you have set apart by themselves?" He replied, "Accept these 7 lambs from my hand as a witness that I dug this well." So that place was called Beersheba, because the two men swore an oath there. After the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of Yahweh, the eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time. Some time later, Elohim tested Abraham and said, "Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his 2 servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father?" Excuse me. "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the two of them went on together. So this is a shadow picture of what would happen with Yeshua. God would provide the lamb of sacrifice for our sins. So let's keep on going. When they reached the place God told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar and on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him." So again, this is also evidence that Yahweh does not accept human sacrifice for sins. Now there's something called in Isaiah 53, what we see is something called substitutionary atonement, where someone can voluntarily um, give themselves up for the sins of mankind, and that's what Yeshua did. But this is not what Isaac is doing here. This is not voluntary. This is not consensual. But neither is he able to give man the forgiveness of sins. There are several reasons why this is, and that would have to be for another video. And now, no, now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. There in a thicket. So Yahweh provided the sacrifice. So Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide, and to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. The angel of Yahweh said to Abraham from heaven a second time, and said, I swear by myself, declares Yahweh, that because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son. Interestingly, Abraham has another son named Ishmael, but we see in verse 21, it appears that he's estranged because Hagar was cast out. So now we see Isaac referred to as his only son. This is like Yeshua. He comes on the scene, and we see that he's the only begotten son of Elohim. So in verse 17, it says, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on the earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. So other people will receive Yahweh's grace or his favor because of Abraham's because of Abraham, because of Abraham. Essentially, Abraham merited favor from Yahweh, and now that same favor will be imparted to those who seek to become his children. Then Abraham returned to his servants, and they set off together for Beersheba, and Abraham stayed in Beersheba. Some time later, Abraham was told, Milcah is also a mother. She has borne sons to your brother Nahor. So Abraham's an uncle now. Uz the firstborn, Buz his brother, Kemuel the father of Aram, Kesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. Milcah bore these 8 sons to Abraham's brother Nahor. His concubine, whose name is Reumah, also had sons, Teba, Gaham, Tahash, Maachah. So there's a lot going on here, guys, in this chapter. So we're going to go ahead and go to 2 Kings chapter 4. And why don't we go ahead and read up to verse 27. Okay, let's go ahead and read to verse 36. The wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered Yah, but now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves. So the husband's dead, and he clearly is indebted, and this woman, who's a widow, clearly is unable to pay that debt. So there's a procedure that Yahweh has for for taking care of our widows in the book of Leviticus, and that's something we can touch on later. Elisha replied to her, How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? Your servant has nothing there at all, except a small jar of olive oil. Go around and ask your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars as each is filled. Put one, put it to each side. Excuse me, sorry about that cough. So then he continued, or excuse me, she left him and shut the door behind her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, Bring me another one. But he replied, there's not a jar left. And the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, "Go, sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left." One day Elisha went to Shunem, and a well-to-do woman was there, who urged him to stay for a meal. So whenever he came by, he stopped there to eat. So it's interesting. A well-to-do woman was there. So Yeshua says, so we see right here, Yeshua says to the disciples, "Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet, as this woman clearly did with Elisha in Second Kings, this is why she's called the well-to-do woman, will receive a prophet's reward." So she's going to get a reward in the kingdom. And whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone even gives a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward. So he said, even if you give him a cold cup of water as a refreshment. So, but she gave him a full-on meal, it looks like. So this woman said to her husband, "I know that this man who often comes our way is a holy man of God." So this is another woman. "Let's make a small room on the roof and put it on a bed and a table, a chair and a lamp for him. Then he can stay there whenever he comes to us." So they will receive the rewards of prophets, according to our Messiah Yeshua and our King. One day when Elisha came, he went up to his room and lay down there. He said to his servant Gehazi, "Call the Shunammite." So he called her, and she stood before him. Elisha said to him, "Tell her, you have gone through all this trouble for us. Now what can be done for you? Can we speak on your behalf to the king or the commander of the army?" She replied, "I have a home among my own people. What can be done for her? She has no son, and her husband is old. Call her." So he called her, and she stood in the doorway. "About this time next year, you will hold a son in your arms." "No, my lord. Please, man of God, don't mislead your servant." But the woman became pregnant, so she didn't believe it. But just like Sarah in this case, she became pregnant because, Yahweh told Sarah, and now the prophet, who is a representative of Yahweh, who's an agent of Yahweh, tells this woman she's going to become pregnant. And it says, and the next year, about that same time, she gave birth to a son, just like Sarah, just as Elisha had told her. The child grew, and one day he went out to his father, who was with the reapers. He said to his father, "My head, my head." His father told his servant, "Carry him to his mother." After the servant had lifted him up and carried him to his mother, the boy sat on her lap until noon, and then he died. She went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, and then shut the door and went out. Or, excuse me, um, I wanted to read to verse 19. This is another situation that happens to the child, and we can probably address that in another video. That way we can get to the point here. I don't want to miss the point. So we go to Matthew 1. Okay, so now we have the genealogy of Yeshua. I'm not going to worry about that. Um, so in verse 18, Matthew 1, actually, this is how the birth of Yeshua the Messiah came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph. Excuse me. Before they came together, right, in holy matrimony, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Ghost. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the Torah and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace. Now, this is suggesting that he was faithful to the Torah, and it says, and yet, so he had the right to expose her to public disgrace. Because really, if a woman wasn't a virgin on her marriage day, that was shameful in the society. So it said he had in mind to divorce her quietly. So he wasn't going to make it a whole public deal like you can. He's just going to do it quietly, as faithfully as possible. It says, but after he had considered this, an angel of Yahweh appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid. So he calls him Joseph, son of David. Do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. So Yahweh impregnated Mary, not through traditional means, obviously, but it was a miracle. So it says, she will give birth to a son. You're to call him the name Yeshua, because he will save his people from their sins. So Yeshua means Yahweh saves. So we see Vayera, the Torah portion, and Yahweh called, but now we're seeing a situation in which Yahweh is saving or is going to save. So it says, all this took place to fulfill what Yahweh had said through the prophet. This is the prophet Yeshayahu or Isaiah. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means Elohim with us. So Yeshua is effectively the manifestation of Elohim in weakened and essentially in weakened and what we would call corrupted flesh. Um, so Yeshua is the manifestation, but not in his glory because he took on flesh. So it says, when Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him and took Mary home as his wife. But he did not consummate their marriage. So he didn't do anything to her until she gave birth to a son. And that's good because, um, according to the Niddah laws, when you give birth to a boy, you're unclean for so many days. So he wasn't allowed to go into her for so many days because it says he was faithful to the Torah, right? So it says, and he gave him the name Yeshua. So I think this was a great Torah portion. I had to keep it shorter this week. I hope to make it longer next week so it's more insightful. That's the goal instead of just kind of like speed reading through stuff. But that's going to be it for today. I'll come back to this. And yeah, you guys have a great night. Take care.